never-before-seen footage of Sean Diddy Combs in the days leading up to his arrest in New York last September.
You want to put the stuff in my fanny pack, King?
The exclusive video obtained by Netflix shows Combs debating with his lawyers about strategy.
The entire atmosphere shifted the moment the new scandal surfaced. It wasn't a rumor. It wasn't speculation. It wasn't one of those stories people ignore until the dust settles.
Listen to me. I'm going to get off the phone right now, and I am going to let you professionals look at the situation and come back to me with a solution. No matter what nobody said. Let's just, here and there, y'all are not working together the right way. We're losing.
The footage is part of a new, highly anticipated docuseries by director Alex Stapleton and rapper and executive producer Curtis 50 Cent Jackson, titled Sean Combs: The Reckoning. Was there anything that surprised you when you were watching?
I think it was surprising that he actually filmed it.
It was very interesting to watch a man who's known for his brand presence. You know, he has a really amazing knack for marketing and all of that, and how he was sort of taking that into account in how he was coming off to the public.
The exclusive video also shows Combs in Harlem greeting fans.
Off my back, bro. Lord, you win. I'm gonna win. Lord, you win. We win it. I'll accept it. I need some hand sanitizer. Hold on. I got it. I've been out in the streets amongst the people. Yeah, I gotta take a bath. Like the amount of people that actually I'm coming in contact with, like that's what I have to do. You know what I'm saying? Oh. It's like 150 hugs.
You're a public person as well, and there was one instance in Harlem, and his reaction when those people
went away.
Got in
the car and said, I feel like I need to wash, like I'm dirt. It show you his character.
Was that the reason for including it?
Yeah. I mean, what's the odds that you would do that in front of the camera? Like, that's one of the moments where he forgot he was on tape.
How do you respond to people who say that it's more about the disdain that you have for Sean Combs than it is for giving the victims a platform?
What they consider a pre-existing beef, right, for 20 years, right, is me being uncomfortable with him suggesting that he takes me shopping, or I looked at it like it was like a tester, like maybe you'll come play with me, type of thing, right? And it's not personal.
I think it's important to also let people know that the show is not completely the perspectives of people that did not like Sean. We weren't trying to just get the highlights, the salacious details, you know, that the real goal was to storytell. And not everyone needed to have an allegation to be a part of this project.
The 4-part series also features 2 jurors from Combs' trial who are speaking for the first time about how they reached their mixed verdict, finding Combs guilty of 2 prostitution offenses, but clear of racketeering and sex trafficking charges, both sharing their thoughts on the relationship between Combs and singer Cassie. Juror 75 describing them as 2 people in love, and Juror 160 saying in part, domestic violence wasn't one of the charges. Cassie, is she a victim in all this?
I believe Cassie's a victim in all this because she came in as she's like 18, like 19 years old. In the very beginning. After a while, over time, you condition for it.
The goal of what the film is trying to do is to let the audience kind of come in to ask questions like, were their decisions colored by certain things, and who got the benefit of the doubt, you know, in that courtroom?
Do you think that hip-hop culture was on trial as much as Sean Combs was?
Look, if I didn't say anything, you would interpret it as the hip-hop is fine with his behaviors. There's no one else being vocal. So you would look at it and just say,
this one was different. This one landed like a meteor, cracking the ground beneath the industry and sending shockwaves through every corner of the culture. And just when people were trying to process what they had heard, another explosion hit, this time from someone who didn't hesitate for a second to call things out as they are. What came next wasn't gentle. It wasn't polished. It wasn't safe. It was a barrage of revelations, a flood of truths, a storm of commentary that ripped every sugar-coated narrative to pieces. It exposed the underbelly of an empire that had been protected for far too long. And as each revelation dropped, the internet didn't just react, they exploded. The commentary arrived like a series of bombs, each one hitting harder than the last, and within seconds, the entire scandal transformed. It went from being a chaotic mess of headlines to a fully dissected disaster that the world could finally see clearly. The commentary dragged the truth out into the open, piece by piece, layer by layer, with not a single ounce of hesitation. It didn't protect anyone.
This morning, never-before-seen footage of Sean Diddy Combs in the days leading up to his arrest in New York last September.
You want to put the stuff in my fanny pack, King?
The exclusive video obtained by Netflix shows Combs debating with his lawyers about strategy.
Listen to me. I'm going to get off the phone right now, and I am going to let you professionals look at the situation and come back to me with a solution. No matter what nobody said. Let's just, here and there, y'all are not working together the right way. We're losing.
The footage is part of a new, highly anticipated docuseries by director Alex Stapleton and rapper and executive producer Curtis 50 Cent Jackson, titled Sean Combs: The Reckoning. Was there anything that surprised you when you were watching?
I think it was surprising that he actually filmed it.
It was very interesting to watch a man who's known for his brand presence. You know, he has a really amazing knack for marketing and all of that, and how he was sort of taking that into account in how he was coming off to the public.
The exclusive video also shows Combs in Harlem greeting fans.
Lord, you win, be with it. I'll accept it.
I need some hand sanitizer. Hold on.
I got it. I've been out in the streets amongst the people. Yeah, I gotta take a bath. Like the amount of people that actually I'm coming in contact with, like that's what I have to do. You know what I'm saying? Oh. It's like 150 hugs.
You're a public person as well, and there was one instance in Harlem, and his reaction when those people
Went away.
Got
in the car and said, I feel like I need to wash, like I'm dirt. That was, it show you his character.
Was that the reason for including it?
Yeah, I mean, and what's the odds that you would do that in front of the camera? Like that's one of the moments where he forgot he was on tape.
How do you respond to people who say that it's more about the disdain that you have for Sean Combs than it is for giving the victims a platform?
What they consider a pre-existing beef, right, for 20 years, right, is me being uncomfortable with him suggesting that he takes me shopping, or I looked at it like it was like a tester, like maybe you'll come play with me, type of thing, right? And it's not personal.
I think it's important to also let people know that the show is not completely the perspectives of people that did not like Sean. We weren't trying to just get the highlights, the salacious details, you know, that the real goal was to storytell. And not everyone needed to have an allegation to be a part of this project.
The 4-part series also features 2 jurors from Combs' trial who are speaking for the first time about how they reached their mixed verdict, finding Combs guilty of 2 prostitution offenses, but clear of racketeering and sex trafficking charges, both sharing their thoughts on the relationship between Combs and singer Cassie. Juror 75 describing them as 2 people in love, and Juror 160 saying in part, domestic violence wasn't one of the charges. Cassie, is she a victim in all this?
I believe Cassie's a victim in all this because she came in as she's like 18, like 19 years old in the very beginning. After a while, over time, you condition for it.
The goal of what the film is trying to do is to let the audience kind of come in to ask questions like, were their decisions colored by certain things, and who got the benefit of the doubt, you know, in that courtroom?
Do you think that hip-hop culture was on trial as much as Sean Combs was?
Look, if I didn't say anything, you would interpret it as the hip-hop is fine with his behaviors. There's no one else being vocal. So you would look at it and just say,
it didn't soften the blows. It didn't care who got uncomfortable. It only cared about exposing the truth. From the very beginning, the commentary made something extremely clear. This scandal was not a surprise, not to those who had been watching closely, not to those who had seen the patterns forming over years and years, not to those who knew how power operates behind closed doors. And when the truth finally spilled out, the commentary hit with the fury of someone who had been waiting for this moment for a long, long time. It started by tearing apart the illusion There had always been this carefully constructed image, this persona wrapped in glamour, success, influence, and untouchable authority. It was an image built over decades, strengthened by money, surrounded by hype, and sustained by silence. But the scandal shattered it, and the commentary finished the job. Every piece of commentary was like dragging a spotlight into the darkest corners of an empire that had thrived on secrecy. The commentary exposed the contradictions, the double standards,
We have to find somebody that'll work with us that has dealt in the dirtiest of dirty business. We're losing.
Sean Diddy Combs, seen in what he's now calling stolen footage, getting dressed, greeting fans.
I need some hand sanitizer.
Yeah, I gotta take a bath.
And arguing with his lawyers 6 days before his arrest in New York last year.
Listen to me. I'm gonna get off the phone right now, and I am gonna let you professionals look at the situation and come back to me with a solution.
Was there anything that surprised you when you were watching?
I think it was surprising that he actually filmed it. That's one of the moments where he forgot he was on tape.
Curtis 50 Cent Jackson at the helm of the 4-part docuseries Sean Combs: The Reckoning, coming to Netflix December 2nd. The longtime Diddy critic sitting down with Robin Roberts on Good Morning America Monday.
If Sean Combs watches this, what do you think he's going to feel?
Like, wow, this is amazing. I think he's gonna say this is the best documentary I've seen in a long time.
Expect more never-before-seen moments, plus 2 jurors speaking out for the first time about how they reached their mixed verdict back in July.
It was a scary situation because you have, 12 people who hold the fate of your life.
As for Diddy, well, he's sharing his thoughts with ET from a New Jersey prison, where he's serving a 50-month sentence on prostitution-related charges. Through a spokesperson, he's calling the project a shameful hit piece that relied on stolen footage that was never authorized for release.
We have to find somebody that'll work with us that has dealt in the dirtiest of dirty business.
Diddy's team says Mr. Combs has been amassing footage since he was 19 to tell his story in his own way. It's fundamentally unfair and illegal for Netflix to misappropriate that work. They add it's equally staggering that Netflix handed creative control to a longtime adversary with a personal vendetta.
How do you respond to people who say that it's more about the disdain that you have for Sean Combs than it is for giving the victims a platform?
What they consider a pre-existing beef, right, for 20 years, right, is me being uncomfortable with him suggesting that he takes me shopping, or I looked at it like it was like a tester, like maybe you'll come play with me, type of thing. And it's not personal, but he knows the truth. I think he'll see the truth in it.
Yeah, I mean, 50 Cent, for many people, if it was ever, there was an anecdote that came out that someone had said, oh, I like guns, when talking about it back and forth, it might scare you. 50 Cent was at the Knicks-Pacers game in Indiana with a Free Diddy t-shirt on, sitting courtside the next day. It's different. It was, yeah, it was different. I look back, and we aired a bit kind of leading into this interview, a clip from The Breakfast Club. It was 2018, and Diddy was on the show, and they asked about the issues that he had with 50 Cent. And he said, there's no issues. I love him. He loves me. He was kind of joking about it. And then you hear these stories that come out, whether it's this one specifically about 50 Cent or just in general, the picture that's being painted by the government in this trial. For you, has kind of the image of Sean Combs and who you thought he was, has it changed during the course of what we've seen over the last couple of weeks?
Certainly over the course of what we've seen, but I think
vicious patterns everyone pretended not to notice. It brought out the inconsistencies in the narrative that the central figure had always tried to sell to the world. It revealed the cracks in the empire that had been held together by ego, power, and manipulation. And the audience felt every word. Comment sections blew up. Discussions erupted across every platform. People replayed the commentary over and over again, dissecting every sentence, every shot fired, every truth bomb, because it wasn't just entertainment. It was exposure. It was the kind of reality check the culture needed but had avoided for too long. And the commentary didn't stop. It went deeper. It started connecting dots that had been ignored for years. It pointed out how the red flags had always been there, subtle at first, then blatant, then glaring, but nobody wanted to call them out because the empire was too big. too influential, too protected. People feared the consequences of speaking up. So the commentary spoke for them. With every revelation, the internet began to understand.
I've seen an interview where 50 said, if you want to go nowhere, go to Diddy. If you're ready for your career to die, go to Diddy. It's long been rumored that Diddy didn't necessarily treat his artists properly, and if you look through his roster of artists, you'll see a lot of individuals whose careers probably started off really, really well, but they ended up with no money. That's long been the rumor. There've been rumors of abuse by Diddy toward Cassie and toward Kim and some other women as well. Even when he was at, I think Uptown is where he originally started. So there've always been rumors, but nothing really solidified and verified like we've had in this trial. It's been awful. I think it would be awful for anyone. I don't think his reputation is in the business world certainly will never recover. And even if he's found not guilty, his name is mud. I don't think that it's recoverable. I think everybody is extremely shocked, especially just some of the sexually explicit things. We have a huge morality issue in America. So anything that's like a little deviant is just not going to be really good for you. So I think everybody's a little shocked. I'm a little shocked and appalled and horrified, and I think a lot of people are. But this is not what we knew. We knew some things weren't right, but we didn't know just how wrong they were.
And I feel like we just knew because, we all grew up, whether it was, some of the roles he had in movies, and he was everywhere, and then his brands were everywhere. And it's like Making the Band was such like a hit show on MTV back in the day. And there's that famous scene where he has all the contestants walk to Brooklyn to go get, I think it was Junior's cheesecake. And he's yelling at people. And then it seemed like everyone around him in any documentary that he did, it was like, oh, that's just Puff because he's always just so angry. And then it's just this whole other level in the trial where it just, as an attorney, how effective has the government been, as you just read, and we can only read transcripts really and kind of hear from the people we have in the courtroom, but just at this point, how effective has the government been in painting the picture of this isn't just someone who was a domestic abuser, this isn't someone who was just a mean boss, but this was a racketeer who was running a criminal enterprise.
Yeah, and I think the forced labor issue. I think they've done an excellent job with that. With the transcripts I've been reading, a lot of the people are saying that they worked for 20 hours. Like that's the magic number, 20 hours straight. They, on a good day, we heard you'll get 4 hours of sleep. On a bad day, you'll get 4 hours of sleep. I think one of the what is it? A bodyguard said, if you sleep, you're getting fired. Like it was more rhythmic than that. I don't know, but you couldn't sleep around him. And I think that's what we saw with Making the Band. But again, we really didn't believe it. We thought it was for entertainment purposes. We didn't think someone could really act like this. And if an employee gave any pushback, they would either be terminated or they'd be threatened with reputational damage. They would be threatened with being blackballed, or they actually would be blackballed. And I think the government is doing an excellent job of proving forced labor.
And on that forced labor part, because on one hand, and I found it interesting, like George Kaplan, who is a former personal assistant for Diddy, like detailed all these, witnessing the abuse, he said, of Cassie. And then he was someone who would start work at 9:30 in the morning. And I think he said sometimes he went home at 7 o'clock in the morning the next day. And that's just what it was like. And he still, at the end of his
just how massive this scandal really was. This wasn't a small mistake. This wasn't a one-time incident. This was a collapse decades in the making. The unraveling of a legacy that had been built on foundations far more fragile than anyone dared to admit. The commentary's tone was ruthless, but it was also precise. It didn't rely on gossip. It didn't rely on imagination. It relied on pattern recognition, real patterns, long patterns, undeniable patterns, patterns that exposed the truth behind the curtain. It highlighted how power warps accountability, how influence distorts consequences, how fame protects the guilty until the truth becomes too monstrous to hide. People listening felt something strange, relief. Finally, someone said what needed to be said. Finally, someone broke the code of silence. Finally, someone spoke without fear. The commentary made the scandal bigger, louder, and impossible to ignore. It forced people who had been loyal to the central figure to face uncomfortable truths.
Testimony said something along the lines of, he respects Diddy as this business person. In the eyes of the law and in this trial, what's the line between, well, this was a guy who just worked his employees really hard, to the point of where it was a forced labor issue where he was breaking the law?
So I think the perfect forced labor issue is, I think, Mia's testimony that we read through today. And, I think it's really easy for someone to say, well, hey, why don't you just leave? Well, one of the elements with forced labor is if you leave, you're threatened with reputational damage. You're threatened with being blackballed. You're threatened with psychological manipulation. So I think, that's a perfect example. With respect to Kaplan's testimony, I think what was so important is when he said toward the end of his testimony, I believe, that Diddy's call him a god amongst men. Well, how did he become a god amongst men? Did he use his enterprise? Did he use his influence? Did he use coercion? Did he use threats? Did he use violence to become a god amongst men? So I think, whereas a lot of people may think that that was really flattering toward Diddy, I thought that that was more damaging than anything because of what he did to become a god amongst men. Does that make sense to you?
No, it does. And that's an interesting way to look at
Yeah.
it, because at the end of Kaplan's testimony, we did a show specifically, and I found it interesting because, like, really in the grand scheme of all the witnesses, George Kaplan's probably, by the end of this, someone that we may not even remember his name. But I just found it interesting where he was worked so hard. He was cleaning up the hotel rooms, and talked about all the baby oil and stuff that he was cleaning up in the hotel room. So you're just like, what kind of job is this? And then at the end, he's still like, yeah, it was almost, he was trying to be complimentary. But you look at that and you're like, the view that people had of Sean Combs within Bad Boy and Combs Enterprises, it was beyond, it felt like a boss, because there's still this, like, I need to give him a compliment at the end of the testimony. From the defense's side, they have tried to say, well, hey, Sean Combs, the video from 2016, yeah, it's bad. He was, this is domestic abuse. It's not a domestic abuse case. This is a racketeering, sex trafficking case. As a criminal defense attorney, to this point, how have they been doing in trying to score points for Sean Combs after some really difficult testimony that the government's putting forward?
I think they've been making some good objections. I think that they've been doing the best they can. I was shocked that they didn't cross-examine Cassie's mother, which I thought was extremely damaging testimony. But I think they're doing exactly, the best that they can with what they've got. I think that Diddy ran a campaign, or at least this is what the government is showing us, that he ran a campaign of psychological warfare. You can tell in the type of people that he hired. A lot of people have testified that if they left, they didn't have really many resources. They may not have had the parents or the spouse or the background to help them do other things within the industry. So, and I think he did that on purpose with his hiring practices. And, again, it was just a reign of terror and psychological warfare. I think the defense, they're just doing, the best they can. They're poking little holes in people's memories, which to me, it really doesn't matter. The fundamentals are what matters. If you can't remember whether somebody had on a yellow shirt or purple shoes, like, that doesn't matter. I care about the fundamentals. And I think
It forced the industry to confront its own hypocrisy. It forced the wider culture to rethink what it means to hold someone accountable. And the more the commentary revealed, the more the empire cracked. The imagery painted by the revelations was dark. It showed a world built on control, manipulation, intimidation, and secrecy, a world where consequences never seemed to land, a world where the powerful believed they could bend reality however they wanted, because they had always gotten away with it. Until now. The commentary exposed how the empire operated behind the scenes, how money flowed in ways nobody questioned, how fear was used as a tool, how the people around the central figure enabled the worst behavior, how the system allowed all of this to continue unchecked. It painted a picture that was disturbing but necessary. The internet reacted instantly, live streams popped up everywhere, think pieces got published every hour, memes flooded the timeline, people debated, people argued, people panicked. Because this scandal wasn't just about the central figure.
They're doing great jobs with poking holes, but they're not doing a good job where it matters because they don't have anything with respect to where it matters, if that makes sense.
No, it does. And one thing, you talk about the objections, and I'm happy you brought that up because just reading through the transcripts, it seems like there's an objection. I remember in Deontay Nash's testimony, the celebrity stylist, it was like every single question, the defense was popping in and having something to say. Is that typical? Is this an above average amount of objections that you're seeing from the defense?
No, I think it's pretty normal. I think they've been strategic about it. I think they've been quiet when they need to be, and I think that they've been pretty vocal, where they need to be. So I don't think it's out of the ordinary.
Typically when you object, and I'm always just fascinated by that because I think there's a big difference probably between what you see on Law and Order and the reason for objections in real life. What is the way a question, this is kind of just getting into the legal part of it. What is the way a question needs to be asked, and why would you object in certain cases where it seems like the prosecution's asking an open-ended question and then the defense steps in and objects?
Well, so a lot of the objections come from laying the foundation. So an example of laying foundation is if we know that a drug is at issue. You don't want to say, when you saw such and such with the drug, what did you do with it? You want to first lay a foundation. Where did this item come from? Did you know what was in the item? And if they say, yes, I knew there were pills in it, I got them from such and such place. Okay, how did you know what these pills were made of, or what impact they'd have on the body? I know what ecstasy looks like. Oh, this was my prescription that I passed to X, Y, and Z. You just have to lay a foundation. And sometimes if you're not laying a foundation, you're going to get an objection.
And then just finally, as we're still on the front end of this trial, and it's incredible to think that the prosecution still has a couple more weeks to go with everything we've heard thus far. When it comes to the racketeering, they've made the argument that he was responsible for the arson of Kid Cudi's car. We've heard multiple people like Capricorn Clark say that she was kidnapped by Sean Combs. Has the government, to this point, how close are they, in your opinion, to kind of reaching the bar that they need to on these charges?
I really think they've reached it. I think they've reached it with sex trafficking. I think they've reached it with forced labor. I think, who knows with respect to the arson, but I think they've reached it already. And I think it's going to be important in their closing for them to, those little games we used to play when we were kids, draw the line, connect the dots. They're just going to have to connect the dots and be very succinct about it in their closing. And I think that's why they're shutting down early, and they're going to cut a few witnesses from what I've heard, because you don't need them. You don't want to overwhelm your jury. And I think it's just, bring it home in the closing. That's what they have to do. I don't think that there's really not much the defense can do. I think that, they're going to talk about how he's just a bad guy. He does bad things, but this doesn't rise to RICO. And I just don't see how they're going to win with that.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. It's been a very, very interesting is an interesting word to use for it, because there's just been so much each and every day.
It was about the decay within the entire system that allowed this behavior to thrive. And the commentary became the voice of the people. It spoke the words everyone had been waiting to hear. It demanded accountability. It demanded answers. It demanded exposure. It didn't care about legacy. It didn't care about reputation. It didn't care about the consequences. It cared about the truth. The more the commentary continued, the more people realized that this scandal was only scratching the surface. There were deeper layers, darker layers, hidden layers, and the commentary told the world exactly that this was only the beginning. The internet began to anticipate every new update like the next episode of a wildfire series, and each one dropped with the same force, the same intensity, the same unapologetic honesty. The Empire's responses, meanwhile, looked shaky, defensive, hollow, unconvincing. Every denial felt weaker than the last. Every attempt to spin the narrative failed. Every statement looked like an act of desperation, and the commentary wasted no time tearing each one apart. It broke down the lies. It exposed the inconsistencies. It pointed out the deflections. It held the empire accountable with surgical precision. People watching were stunned by the accuracy. It felt like watching someone peel apart a facade with bare hands. And the commentary wasn't done. It went after the culture of silence. It highlighted how people who knew the truth stayed quiet because they feared backlash. It talked about how the powerful are protected by networks of loyalty rooted in fear rather than respect. It called out the industry's pattern of looking the other way as long as profits kept flowing. The commentary became a spotlight the empire couldn't escape. Every platform echoed it. Every conversation returned to it. Every update fed into it. The scandal grew bigger with each passing hour, and the empire shrank. People began asking the question the commentary had been hinting at from the start: if this is what's coming out publicly, what else has been hidden? And that question alone was enough to ignite panic behind the scenes. The commentary saw the panic and exposed it too. It described the frantic attempts to control the narrative, the rushed statements, the desperate calls, the behind-the-scenes scrambling to stop the bleeding. It made it clear that the empire was losing its grip. The culture realized something monumental. This scandal wasn't a storm passing through. It was a demolition. A reckoning. The empire may try to rebuild. The scandal may continue to unfold. The investigations may deepen. But one thing is undeniable. Nothing will ever be the same again. Because once a bombshell like that drops, the echoes last forever.